I remember something my father told me one day. I was crying. I'm never going to have a house. And he said to me, "What would you even do if you slayed all your dragons? When you finally get there, is it really all you wanted?" And I wonder if there are people out there who are just content when they get things, but that's not me. Did you ever want something so bad and then you get it and it kind of has this opposite effect where you kind of let down a little bit? When I found out I was pregnant, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't even big enough for the two of us, let alone the two of us and a baby. So now we had to start looking for two-bedroom apartments. And we did. We found a beautiful two-bedroom apartment. But in the back of my mind, I always thought, okay, I'm never going to be able to give my child what I had. And I had a beautiful house, a beautiful pool. I had all the things that you could ever ask for. Maybe not the emotional aspect, but I had all the things. And so in my mind, I needed to give my child all of the things in order to, give him a successful life. And so we lived in this two-bedroom apartment for about 5 years before I really started to think, okay, now we need to move again. But in those 5 years, I used to cry at night and I would call my dad in the middle of the night and I'd be like, "Dad, I'm never going to have a house. I'm never going to be able to afford a house. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen." And I um I did that so much. I would have panic attacks in the middle of the night. I'd call him 1 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "You got to stop. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out." I'm like, "How is it going to work out? How is it going to work out?" One thing after the other made it not feel like it was going to work out. And I can get into those another day, but one thing after the other. And so I never, ever, ever imagined I'd be able to give my son a house. And so when he was about 5 or 6, I kind of gave up on that dream a little bit. And I was like, okay, we're not going to have a house. So I might as well, we're not going to have a house. So I might as well get a bigger apartment because now he was getting bigger and his toys were getting bigger. And I wanted an office for myself and I wanted him to have a toy room. And I wanted all of these things, even though I knew I was never going to afford a house. So eventually I start looking for a bigger apartment. So I find one just about 2 minutes down the road. And my husband didn't want to really move. But, I wanted to. I said, we got to get out of here. I can't stay in this place. And don't get me wrong, I loved where I was. I loved my landlord. I loved everything about the place. It's still, when I think about it, I get very nostalgic. But I needed a bigger place. And I really had resolved that I was not going to have a house. And so we moved. We moved when my son was 6. And we we actually didn't even get a moving truck. That's how close it was. Even though in hindsight that was a terrible idea. We just threw stuff in garbage bags in the car. It was a terrible idea. We get in there. It's got this entryway where I could put my desk and whatnot. And then upstairs it had an extra bedroom, so we put the playroom in there. And at this point I was focused on that. I wasn't so much waking up in the middle of the night crying, "Oh my god, I'm never going to have a house," like I was for 5 years. I was pretty much focused on this. And right about that time, COVID happened. And that summer, my husband ended up blowing up our kitchen, which is a story for another day, and himself. And he, nearly died. And so at that point, we were evicted, which understandably so. So we ended up not knowing where we were going to go. And at this point, my husband had some annuity built up and we looked at about 60 houses because this was the time. And in my gut, I knew it was right. My father told me, "Don't buy a house now. Wait, 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 wait." But at the interest rates that we were getting, it seemed like the right thing to do. And so I just knew that no matter what anyone told me, I knew this was the right thing to do. And we looked at about 60 houses and we finally found one, not exactly where I wanted, not the exact house I ever dreamed I would get, but after 60 houses and not being able to, afford them with everybody, offering $100,000 over asking price, you kind of just have to settle. And when I settled, again, I stumbled upon, God knows what I need, even when I don't. And that was the situation here. And we ended up on this beautiful dead end block right across the street from the elementary school where my son can play in the street. And there's lots of kids everywhere and ride bikes. And, you know, I remember getting all settled, moving in, and it was a very exciting time. But when it all kind of, fizzled out, and about a month or two in, I remember standing on the deck on the side of the house and saying, we really could use a pool. And so, and I even laughed at myself because I'm like, what? Wait a second. I just wanted this so bad. For years, I cried I was never going to get this. And I remember something my father told me one day. I was crying. I'm never going to have a house. And he said to me, "What would you even do if you slayed all your dragons?" And I paused, and I may have brushed it off, but I thought back to that, and I was like, wow, this was something that I wanted so bad, something I never thought that was going to happen for me. And then it happens, and I'm like, okay, what's next? It's like we strive for things, and that's where I think people say, the joy is in the journey, or enjoy the journey, because when you finally get there, is it really all you wanted? Is it really what you thought it was going to be? And not that it's not perfect, it's perfect, but it's like now you have this emptiness, and you're like, okay, something's missing because I'm no longer striving for this. And I wonder if there are people out there who are just content when they get things, but that's not me. I don't know what that feeling of being content once I achieve something is, because I'm always looking for the next thing. And this can be to a fault, because if you're constantly looking, okay, what's the next thing, you're never enjoying what you have. And that is certainly the case here, because I am never, ever content. So a year later, we got that pool, right? And then I was like, oh, I guess we're going to need a new bathroom, and so I'm never comfortable in just being. And even in my work, whenever I make a little more money, I'm making more money now than I ever dreamed about when my son was born. And I think it's not enough now, because you kind of like adapt, and now you need more. And I don't know if it's just something about me who has this disease of more, but I'm never comfortable. And so I guess today's question is, what happens when you finally slay your dragons? What do you even do? Is the excitement really in that striving for something, in that desiring? Because maybe we need to sit in that more and enjoy it while it's there. I'm thinking about the next few years. And the next few years, my son is turning 11. So I got another 7 or 8 years before he goes to college. And I keep thinking about this time. I'm like, I've been thinking about it since he was born. When am I going to be free? And you're never going to be free, but when am I going to be able to go do the things that I want to do? And I realize that once I get there, I'm not going to want it. Everything I've ever wanted and gotten, it never felt the way that I thought it was going to feel. I always wanted something more. And so what I'm doing right now in this time frame, in this several years before he really wants nothing to do with me anymore, because we're already getting there, I'm starting to enjoy the time with him. I even said to my husband, we're going to look back one day and we're going to say these were the best years of our lives. Just like when we look back to when he was little, even though it was awful for a while, um, I look back at home videos and I think, wow, these were some of the best years of my life. Look at all the excitement, look at the newness, look at this baby smiling. Well, later, look at this toddler smiling, and look at the fun and the joy in our faces and all the things we did. Disney and Universal and farms and pumpkins and all apples and all the things, animals, all the things that we did, and we were so excited about it. And you look back and you're like, wow, that was a great time, but I was still so interested in the next thing. Did I really appreciate that time? I don't think I did. In hindsight, I don't think I did. So what I really have done is made an effort, a conscious effort, to understand that we're going to look back in another 10 years and we're going to say, right now, this is the best time of our life. That's what's going to happen, because I've already experienced it once and I'm not going to make that mistake again. So I'm enjoying this time. I'm making sure that there are extra I love yous, and I'm soaking up any minute my son actually wants to spend with me because I know it's starting to dwindle, and I'm really enjoying it for the most part because I know that I'm going to look back at these videos and say, "Wow, we were so happy. Look at this time." And this really is an exciting time because he's growing and maturing and he doesn't need as much as he did when he was a baby. And he's got this personality and he's funny and he's a real pain in the ass, and it's just we get to have this special thing, that's going to keep changing because the only constant in life is that it just keeps changing. So, if I know that, and I know that no matter what I want right now, I want to go to Italy. I want to go to Italy so bad. When I get there, I'm going to be like, yeah, now what when I get back? So, it's this striving and this yearning for something that actually is the exciting part. It's not the getting what we want because when I got this house, yeah, it was exciting for a month. For a month, it was exciting. And then I was like, and there were times where I was like, oh my God, I really can't believe this is my house. I can't believe we did this, but because it felt so unachievable. But then you're like, okay, now what? Now what am I going to yearn for? Now what do I want? Because this isn't enough. It's not enough to just get what we want. We want more. Or at least I want more. I have the disease of more. There is nothing that's enough for me. Nothing. I want more happiness, more whatever, more. Just more food, more ice cream. I just want more. And so I am making a conscious effort right now to enjoy the yearning for the next thing. And I don't know if I'm going to get everything that I yearn for now. There are lots of things that I want. I don't know if I'm going to get them, but I'm going to enjoy wanting them a little bit more because there's always going to be something else that I insert in there. There's never going to be, okay, I checked everything off my list. Now I can go be peaceful. That's never going to be me. I am never going to sit back and be like, I'm content. No, that's just not who I am. And I envy those people because I guarantee there are people out there who are content. They get stuff and they're like, wow, this is great. I'm going to go sit in peace and meditate. That's fantastic. That's not me. I wish I was that. I wish I could work a job and be happy at my job and not want the next thing, and it's just never going to be me. I am always going to want something more. And so, today I really wanted to focus on that climax that just fizzles and then you just insert something else in there. It's a constant circle. It is a constant rat wheel. And I think the only way to combat that is to enjoy the yearning, that time period before you get what you want.